This is the end of January 2025, and we're at the week 4 of Patrick Lecture 16, which is called Spiritual Nourishment. And while the majority of this lecture was fairly straightforward, and people said, oh yeah, I understand that. In this section, I wanted to highlight something that was in the previous month's lecture, Patrick Lecture 15, which was the influence between the spiritual and the material worlds. And that is repeated, not unusually, because this is the following lecture and the guide just picks up the theme again. So this whole section is called How We Attract and Affect Both Positive and Negative Spirits. And it's very lately gone into, but I thought it would be a good reminder that we're not at the mercy of spirit. It's not all going one way. It's a back and forth. It's an exchange. Now, the higher developed spirits don't have that much to learn from us, but all spirits are not highly developed. So there's a mixture out there. And I like to think of it this way. I like to think that there are some apprentices who have joined the guidance teams, and they're doing gopher work. They're running errands and doing things, and they're learning. And they've got a great deal to learn, so it helps them to see things from a different perspective. Now, where I see that also in earthly terms, in straightforward human terms, is how I run meetings along some principles, some of the same principles as 12-step programs, and that is that people share in turn. And some people wonder, well, what's in it for me? Why don't you just teach me stuff? Well, number one, that's not the best way to learn. The best way to learn is to engage and work on things and then listen and get feedback and then hear how other people are doing things and then give it another go and try it again. That's how real learning happens. That's the kind of classroom that's exciting because you're not just absorbing what one person is telling you. You're experimenting, you're doing, you're trying. So the feedback from people who attend such groups, I'm not the only one, feedback from people who attend such groups is that it's a tremendous way to learn because things come up, other people will discuss things that we've never even thought about, never even heard about. And we can find a little bit of help with what we're doing with what they're doing. And that's how I'd like to analogize that we affect the world of spirit. They are not all super wonderful beings that don't need any help from us. And by observing and helping others, we can learn ourselves. So I'm trying to draw a parallel between what we do in normal human interactions and what spirit-human interactions can be. Now, there are 4 other points in this lecture that in this section that are very important in terms of the spiritual nourishment and also in terms of willpower, which was discussed at length this month and the month before. The first is that we already know what God's will is. If the phrase God's will doesn't work for you, that's fine. Please substitute words that have meaning to you. We already know what divine will is. We already know what's good for everybody. We have a sense of it. We may not have the precise details of it, and we may not know how we can interact with that, but we do have a knowing. And there's a place where when we ask to be told what that is, that we're putting ourselves in the position of little kids. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. What happens then is that we can satisfy the requirements at a minimum level and feel like we've done something. So imagine for a moment that if you say, how can I help? And I say, could you put the dishes over there? And you do that and then you sit down. instead of looking around to try to see what would support me in what I'm trying to accomplish, and picking up whatever small chores you see fit to do so that you feel comfortable with. We contribute more when we are actively involved than when we're being told, do these three things. There's a tendency to stop after that. So number one, there's reluctance to ask because we don't want our sense of what is right confirmed. We'd rather leave it fuzzy so that we don't have to take action. Secondly, we want to be told so that we will do exactly what is required, no more, even though perhaps no less. And the third is a concern, well, if I interpret what divine will is, what if I'm wrong? And the answer is you'll figure it out and you'll do something else. But again, this is about us taking responsibility for having I know you try to use these words very gently, having the wrong concept in the first place, and then holding on to the wrong concept for perhaps a longer period of time than in hindsight we needed to, and then not knowing what else to do. All these things make us feel not worthy. They make us feel not good. They make us feel like we don't know what we're doing or that we're not performing well, versus just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And perhaps you can get a glimmer that if you're told what to do, you may or may not actually fully do it. So that's a large portion of this section of the lecture, and how we joyously address such tasks, or how reservedly we address such tasks, are evident in spirit to those who are observing, and it may resonate for them about their own process, and that's where their learning takes place. So, week 4, how we attract and affect both negative and positive spirits. This is the end of Patrick Lecture 16 on spiritual nourishment, and next week we're off and running to another lecture. And thanks for listening.